welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson, and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hey, I'm DJ Ross. I'm in Mountain View, California.
Each week on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week, that list includes Grand Theft Auto 5, Darksiders Genesis and Helltaker. I feel like I should sort of maybe be a little more ominous. Helltaker.
There you go.
Helltaker. No, that's too much. Plus, we will check...
Too much.
Too much, gone too far. Pull it back a little bit. Plus, we'll check back in on Ministry of Broadcast.
Ooh.
Yep.
I like these revisiting games we've recently talked about for whatever reason. It's like, oh, we forgot something, or we discovered something new, perhaps.
Yep. Or in a couple of occasions, I screwed up. I made a mistake. I would like to issue an apology.
Oh, is this one of those occasions?
No, this is not one of those. This is one of the they patched it and it's good now.
Oh, okay. That's even better.
Yeah. I was a little lukewarm on it. Are we doing this? We're talking about it now?
Oh, wait, I don't know. Do you want to talk about it?
So Ministry of Broadcast. So a couple weeks ago,
wow, just getting into it.
I talked about this game, Ministry of Broadcast, and friendly reminder, this is, it's kind of a puzzle platformer in a lot of ways, with pixel art. It reminded me a bit of games like Flashback, or Out of This World.
Yeah.
And you are a contestant on a reality TV show. You live in a walled city, essentially, and your family's on the other side of the wall. And if you win the reality show by surviving, by getting through all of the little puzzles in the show, you get a pass to get to the other side of the wall to visit with your family. And it was not great. It was, I was into the platforming. I was into the kind of the world building they were doing. It's a little snarky. It's a lot dark. But I thought they kind of pulled that part of it off. It's just that it didn't control well. And I felt like some of the deaths, a lot of the deaths I were encountering were not like through any fault of me not sort of playing the game well, but because the controls were laggy and the jumps were not right. It just didn't have a lot of fidelity to the control. And I ended up more frustrated with it than anything else. The devs had promised a day one patch, which unfortunately sort of the approval of which and the release of which was delayed because of craziness in the world right now.
Yeah, that's right. And
finally, just last week, that patch came out. And I was like, oh my God, they patched Ministry of Broadcast. Let's see if it makes it any easier for me to play. So I fired up the game for the first time after patching it, and it said, would you like to continue on easy or normal mode? And I said, I would like to continue on easy mode, please.
Was that even a thing before, or is it you just couldn't change it during the game?
It was not a thing before. It didn't even ask you that question.
Oh, wow.
One, kudos to these guys for really realizing, these developers, that for realizing they made a very difficult game that needed something a little more accessible for gamers like myself. And two, making it so I didn't have to start over from the beginning to be able to enable this.
Yeah, that's nice.
It asked me just before continuing my game save if I would like to finish the game in easy rather than starting over from the beginning, which I was a little concerned that, like, if they're going to patch in kind of an easy mode or what they call a story mode, I was going to have to start back at the beginning.
Oh,
and
really?
It did not.
Okay. Wow.
It
that
just
has an entirely different implication than just easy mode.
Yeah.
But I think that's good. I think it's a kind of a more recent option, but I think people understand what it means, which is nice.
Yeah, definitely. And in addition to kind of toning down some of the insanity in terms of how aggressive some of the enemies were, how difficult to sort of get past some of the obstacles were, they also tightened up the controls a lot. So the jumping is much more responsive. You kind of turn on a dime now, which took a little getting used to. It was more like controlling a tank in the past, and now your little character in the game is very limber and kind of speedy. There were a lot of weird sort of spelling and grammatical errors because it's a lot of reading in this game in the past. And all of those appear to have been fixed.
Wow.
There are a couple of enemies who will chide you now for playing on easy. Which is kind of funny. There has been some breaking of the fourth wall throughout this game, and this is just another additional thing that they've sort of added into the mix, where a character says something to you along the lines of, whatever, you can do whatever you want, you're just playing on easy mode anyways. and you have a choice at some point of I think going between two different doors or two different directions, and one of the character goes, "Oh, well, that's exactly the kind of thing somebody who plays on easy mode would do."
Yeah.
And I'm like, I kind of like that. I think that's funny. So all of this now said, I was able to finish Ministry of Broadcast. I was able to get past the thing I was stuck on before, which again, if you remember me talking about it a couple weeks ago, had something to do with getting past a pool of piranha and crumbling bridges, which were driving me insane.
Well, there's somebody put a nice little covered walkway over the piranha pit? Or
no, the piranha are a little slower to respond right now.
Oh, okay.
So sort of falling into the water was always sort of part of the program. Just you had to be able to sort of scramble to the next bridge quickly before the piranha caught up to you. And I just could not seem to do it on the previous settings, the previous or with the controls I had in the past. I felt like I was sort of fighting against my controller. And now that I am newly limber and the piranha seemed to be a little more logy. I was maybe a little drunk. Who knows? I was able to sort of get past it after one or two attempts. So
nice.
Yeah.
And then just right on to the end.
Yeah. Yes. And you know, it doesn't make the game a free pass by any stretch. There were still a couple of pinch points. There were a couple of areas where I felt like, I really had to kind of, scratch my head to figure out what the solution's going to be. Maybe I'm not jumping at the right time. Maybe I'm not, talking to the right person, or a lot of it is kind of triggering traps. A lot of it is sort of sacrificing the safety of your co-stars on the reality show, having the guard dogs or the guards kind of sick them so that you can escape around them. And again, I just didn't feel like I had the fidelity of control to be able to get away with some of that stuff previously, but now that it's patched and I feel much better, more under control, I was able to kind of ably get through some of those things after a couple of attempts. So
nice.
So big thumbs up. I think they made a really smart move with this patch. I'm glad it's out. I hope if anyone, maybe like me, kind of bounced off of Ministry or Broadcast before, that I would encourage them to take another shot at it with the new patch, because I think it changes the game immensely for the better.
That's cool. It sounds like there's a lot of changes in this thing. Kind of surprising. Yeah. Actually, it was supposed to come out on day one originally, or at least closer to launch.
It's pretty significant. Yeah, it changed quite a bit. I think, they said that they had intended it to be a day one launch. So imagine making a video game and putting it out in the world and knowing okay, it's not quite where we want it to be, but at least we'll have a day one patch and we can kind of tweak it and get it exactly where we want this game to be before everybody gets their hands on it. And then that gets delayed.
Yeah,
so you've got
terrible.
Yeah, tons of gamers and video game reviewers and podcasts playing a game that is not sort of the final version that you wanted it to be. It is not the final version that you intended for other people to play. And people are formulating opinions and talking to their friends and writing reviews about it based on that. I think that's it's terrifying. I feel really badly for these guys that this thing got delayed. So I'm glad it's sort of in its finished product now, and I wanted to take an opportunity to get on the show and go, I really liked playing Ministry of Broadcast once they patched it. I liked it before. I just felt like I was fighting against it. So it just made it a little bit easier to like now that it's been patched up.
That's kind of how I felt about Panzer Dragoon, which is the game that I talked about last week.
I thought it, yeah.
Because it was okay when it came out, and then the patch took a few weeks, so the patch that made it significantly better than it was on release. But I remember some of the discussion around when it first came out, they were like, this is did they rush this out? Is it early? Because even then they said there was a patch coming with some improvements. And I heard some discussion since the patch has come out, speculating that, if you remember, this was one of those games that they showed off during one of the Nintendo Directs, and they were like, oh, surprise, It's here. You can download it today. And people were speculating is that, do you think that's why they kind of had to scramble and release this thing in kind of an unfinished state, in order to make that direct date?
That's a bummer. Yeah.
Because it seems like you just get so much extra exposure from doing that, where maybe it's worthwhile to kind of push your game out there a little early just to get those extra eyeballs on it.
Right.
Which is kind of too bad, because there was a lot of backlash around some of the perceived shortcomings of that initial release. And I'm sure some people bought it and either like jumped off it pretty quickly, or other people saw reviews saying it wasn't all they were hoping for, and just like didn't end up playing it and never knew the patch came out or whatever.
Yeah.
So what a sticky situation.
Yeah. I love those moments in the Nintendo Directs where they're like, this cool game we just showed you the trailer for is available right now in these. And I'm like,
yeah, I don't know, super exciting.
And,
probably gets a ton of people who otherwise would not even have been interested to go check it out.
Right. And I mean, those Nintendo Directs are like captive eyeballs. People foam at the mouths for those things.
Yeah. Because if you think about the alternative, it's like, okay, we could either be in this Direct or not be in it. And then in that case, what kind of promotion do you get? Just probably very little from Nintendo compared to being in the middle of one of those Directs. So being in a Direct, and having them say the game is available right now, rather than or this game comes out in a month, maybe. You know what I mean? Like, there's got to be. I would be interested to know what the lift is on that kind of day one selling right after that Nintendo Direct hits YouTube. That's I've read some stuff from some indie developers which say like, if you don't have something you can put out to play right away, whether it's like the full version or even a demo, just like don't announce anything, because you lose that opportunity. Like, so many people will watch the trailer and it ends with somebody essentially being like, okay, so don't forget about us in 6 months when this game comes out, because like people are just not going to remember if you don't have anything for them to interact with right away. That's fair. Yeah, absolutely.
It's crazy that Nintendo has built that in a way that, I mean, Sony has tried. They have their little state of play things they do every now and then. I don't know about Xbox. Does that have a direct kind of thing? Not really.
I don't know. I mean, like, even the Sony thing is kind of recent, right? And it's very obviously inspired by the Nintendo thing. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
took them a while.
I think people call it a Sony Direct in a lot of ways. yeah.
I bet they wish they could call it a Sony Direct.
Much to their I think probably much to Sony's dismay, maybe, but yeah. So
Microsoft is still engineering that perfect term, since they can't call it the Xbox Direct. They're just like Phil Spencer staying up late at night. Wow, what do we call it? What should the name be?
Kick it around. There's no bad ideas in brainstorming.
Well, that's cool. I'm glad that turned out, because it sounded very mixed the last time you talked about it.
Yeah. There were things about it, and I certainly would not have gone back to it if there wasn't enough that I kind of appreciated or admired. If I just bounced off it completely, or if it was a complete turnoff, I think, oh, cool, they patched that game, good for them. I don't care to get back to it, but I as soon as I saw, they sort of auto download the patches on the Switch, and I saw the little kind of bar pop up on the icon on my little desktop, and it was downloading the patch in the background. I was like, they finally patched Ministry of Broadcast. Let's get back in and see if it's a little easier to consume now. So yeah, there were enough threads that I was sort of appropriately hooked on it before. I just was tired of fighting against it. So yeah, Ministry of Broadcast, it has a couple of endings. It has multiple endings, and I was able to sort of save my game strategically enough to see a couple of the different endings. So yeah, if you stick around to the end, if you check out Ministry of Broadcast, futz around with it a little bit at the end, and enjoy the couple of different paths it seems to go down. It's good. It's a good game. I appreciate what they've done there.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, Ministry of Broadcasting.
Cool.
Yep. Made even more confusing by the fact that the developer is also called Ministry of Broadcasting.
Oh, I don't know if that's don't know if they're like painting themselves into a corner with that.
Where do you go from there? You can't not make Ministry of Broadcast games
anymore.
Yeah,
I feel like that should be some unspoken rule somewhere where it's like, if you're starting a production company of any sort, you should not name it after the first product. I don't know. Seems like you're really tying yourselves to the fate of that first thing.
Yeah. I don't know. Worked for IBM.
Yeah. Good. We'll end up just like IBM one of these days.
Work for Xerox. Your Kleenex. No, I don't know what else. Yeah. Anyway, other games. We played some other games.
Yeah, I played one of my favorite games this week, which was Grand Theft Auto 5. Remember this game? You heard of this? This little, obscure game from yesteryear.
Speaking of indie games revealed on Nintendo Directs. Yeah.
They're saying, like, I've seen people asking, like, where is this? Why isn't it on the Switch yet? And I'm kind of like, I guess it could be on there.
Are there any Rockstar games on Switch?
L.A. Noire isn't it?
Oh, that's right, it is. Well, that's not Rockstar developed, right? It's Rockstar published.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true. Are any of the older Grand Theft Autos on there?
Not that I'm aware of. Maybe I shouldn't ask questions I don't know the answers to, but yeah. What does Rockstar have against the Switch?
I don't know. Isn't Bully on there? No, maybe that's on PS4 or something. They did a remaster at some point.
Oh, they do a remaster of Bully. Yeah, I don't.
It is a mystery, though.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're not talking about GTA 5 on the Switch.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with this. It's kind of been like months ago. I just thought, hey, remember when I used to play Grand Theft Auto just like 24 hours a day, essentially? It was when I was back in college.
Yeah. Which game was that specifically? Which GTA was that?
Oh, it was like the PS2 trilogy. So GTA 3, Vice City, San Andreas.
Right.
They all managed to hit right in there. It was like the perfect timing on Rockstar's part.
All right.
Still managed to graduate, so that was good. But I don't know what, like, I've had a very tumultuous history with Grand Theft Auto 5 in particular. Like 4 was pretty good. We played a lot of Grand Theft Auto 4.
We did play quite a bit of that. Yes, absolutely.
I think that's how we met, incidentally. That's true. That's weird.
Is that the first game you and I played online together?
I think it is. I was
Does that predate Red Faction Guerrilla?
Oh yeah, for sure. I was just like,
oh wow,
who's this guy? Hope I don't end up doing a podcast with him.
I remember when they were teasing GTA 5, we were so hyped about it. We dedicated an entire episode of the podcast to the trailer.
Did we seriously? Oh, that's disgusting.
Because they were like, GTA 5 is coming. Here's this little like trailer. Here's the first look at it. And me, you, and our previous co-host Paul sat around and talked about the trailer for an hour.
Oh God.
And people listened to it, DJ.
Allegedly.
Yeah, rumor has it.
Wow. Okay. I don't remember that at all. Please do not go back and listen to that episode. It's probably terrible. But man, no, I remember being super hyped for this.
Yep.
And then it came out. It was like, wow, real painful wait for this game, actually. I was just like, when are we going to get it? And then it came out, and I played it, and after a few hours, I just had this moment where I just became completely disillusioned with just the idea of playing a video game, almost, because GTA 5 was just... I don't know what it was. It was just the same kind of wash, rinse, repeat GTA experience again.
Yes.
It was like a bunch of people yelling at me to get behind cover and take out some like gangbangers who are shooting at me.
Yeah. I think we sort of crescendoed at the same time, I think, in a lot of ways with GTA 5, because it was originally released on the PS3, I believe, PS3, right?
Yeah.
We started playing it, and I think same thing, that I sort of felt like, oh, well, this is exactly the same game they've been making for the last 15 years. And the aiming still sucks, and the driving still sucks. And none of the characters are like fun or interesting or have any redeeming qualities in any way. It just felt like I had grown up, but Rockstar had not.
Yeah.
It was super disappointing.
Yeah. Plus, there's just a lot of other distasteful stuff happening, and maybe that had just been kind of the signature GTA style for a long time, but it just didn't grate on me as much as it did until GTA 5.
And I think the Saints Row devs had done so much work to take the fun out of that. Like they cranked up the insanity, the absurdity, the whatever, the video game sexiness and sexism and just all of that stuff to a degree that it became, I mean, Saints Row was intended to be a GTA parody, and it just makes GTA look, I don't know what it makes it look like, but it just doesn't make it seem like a unique aspiration anymore.
It really, like the Saints Row games, at least starting with 3. I didn't really play too much. It felt like they were just being absurd in a way that felt like when I played GTA 3 for the first time, because it was like, if you go back and play that game, it's very cartoony and silly, and it's ridiculous the sort of stuff you do in that game. You can like drive a car on the sidewalk and just run over people, but because they're just like really crappy looking PS2 character models, it is just like a cartoon. And it's like, oh man, I crashed my car and now I'm on fire, and I'm running around while I'm on fire, and I'm like popping these adrenaline pills, and it was just so over the top for what you can do in a video game. And I felt like the Saints Row games really started to recapture some of that, as opposed to GTA, which felt like, I don't know if it probably started in like Vice City or something, where they got all these ambitions that they wanted to just be a very kind of serious and dramatic video game. But I felt like they really stepped it up in GTA 4, and especially GTA 5, where now it's like, oh, look how serious this is, but it's still got all this terrible like Rockstar humor scattered throughout, and it's just, I don't know what to make of it. It's definitely not, I don't think it had the gravitas that they were trying to achieve. It just ended up looking like just a really awkwardly written kind of open world video game.
Yeah, it's a weird clash between sort of what Saints Row ultimately sort of embraced and perfected, and where those earlier GTA games kind of existed kind of in this world of absurdity. And then, for GTA 4 and then GTA 5, it was, like you say, kind of a world of seriousness with these absurd elements. And I think it didn't quite mesh in the way that I think Rockstar hoped it would. Mm-hmm. Or maybe somebody on the editorial team at Rockstar thought it did. Mm. So yeah, because, in a lot of the ways where you're sort of like you said, just a shitty PS2 graphics. Or like, look, I can get a prostitute in a cop car, and the car kind of bounces up and down. Like, when you're, 17, that's probably hysterical. Mm-hmm. When you're 45, as I am at this point in my life, I don't know if that's funny anymore. I think that's kind of gross. And
I remember. Just one more note before I get back to GTA 5. But like, I would love, this sounds so grim, but just like targeting people with a sniper rifle in GTA 3 and shooting them, and their head would just like disintegrate. I don't know if it would like fly off, but it would like pop off like a cartoon, and then you get this ridiculous fountain of blood shooting out, and just like, this is an insane world that this game takes place in.
Yep.
And it was hysterical. But then I remember I have this very clear memory of this moment in GTA 4 where I was sticking some guy up, and I was like, get out of the car, and I pointed my gun, and I like shot him through the windshield, and it like made this really realistic pattern, the kind of a shatter, like bullet hole pattern on the windshield, and he like slumped forward in the car, and there was blood all over the windshield, and I was just like, oh my god, oh that's really graphic. Oh, like, it's kind of gross, actually. I feel like I just did something real bad.
Yeah.
So I was just like, oh man, what a contrast between what this game has become versus what I remember when I started playing it.
Right.
And that trend just kind of continued through into GTA 5 to the point where I was just like, it's still just very inconsistent in sort of the tone, and like the quality of the writing is not there. And like you said, a lot of the gameplay is just not good. We make certain exceptions because it's like this huge open world and you can do so much stuff in it. So there's like, the variety is there, but if you like just isolate down one of the things, like, I would not want to play a like shooting game, like a third-person shooter that was just like the GTA 5 shooting
with GTA controls. Yeah,
it was miserable.
Or the platforming controls, or the driving controls, or the flying controls. Yeah,
I think the driving is okay. Like, I feel like the driving's always been pretty good. Like, not as good as if you're playing a dedicated racing game or whatever. But I've always had a pretty good handle on just steering a car around.
4 especially was so terrible.
4 was terrible. I mean, 5
everything
I feel like is
controlled like it was on ice. Yeah. And I remember us playing like a cops and robbers multiplayer mode, and it was a thing where we all had to pile into a cop car, and somebody had to be the driver and drive your buddies across the city.
Everybody was
and
like, "Don't let
nobody
Randy
wanted to be
drive."
the driver.
Oh, I'll be the driver. I would. I think
Fine,
I would.
let's
volunteer.
make DJ the driver. I was suddenly so confident. Where was this 10 years ago? But
I just didn't want to drive because I wanted to be on a bike. You can't drive a bike full of people around.
Just wanted to ride your moped across.
Oh no, I was always in the helicopter. That was a whole other thing. But anyway,
yes, I remember those moments as well. For the sake of our listeners, we would all be sort of screwing around in GTA 4 online multiplayer, running around the airport like slapping each other or whatever the hell you do in that game. And suddenly somebody would go, "Where's DJ?" And then Ride of the Valkyries would start, and he would come swooping in a helicopter because he had snuck away to go find a building to steal a helicopter. It would just rain hot fire down on all of us. Yeah.
Oh well, I was thinking of the times where I would like go get the helicopter so I could pick you guys up and take you to the extract point. But I guess the other scenario happened also.
Yeah.
But anyway, GTA 5.
Sorry, go ahead. Yep.
At some point months ago, I just got into my head like, what if I just started playing this again? I know I really didn't like the campaign, but kind of in parallel to the campaign, there was the whole like GTA Online mode, which felt like it was just so much more than like the online mode in GTA 4. It felt like it was just its separate kind of almost an MMO thing where people just log in and only play GTA Online. It had like not really any connection to the single player. I really just wasn't interested in playing it close to when it came out because I just like didn't want to have anything to do with this game. So I took a break from it and from thinking about it for like 7 years. But in those intervening years, I've just spent like, I keep seeing stuff about it, like the updates they're adding and the fact that just people keep playing it, like still super popular. And it's in some cases, it's all some people play.
And they keep adding new stuff to it. Like until recently, I kept seeing new commercials every couple of months where like, here's this new thing we put in. I'm like, wow, Rockstar, man, keeping this game alive.
Yeah.
Because it makes them $20 million a day.
It makes them a lot of money. It really made me think like, well, I wonder if I'm missing out on something because clearly it has staying power for some people. And I can understand that because I did play a lot of GTA back in the day. And a lot of that would not be like me doing the campaign missions or anything, but it would just be me going out and, screwing around, trying to see how many times I could roll my car or whatever.
Oh, sure.
Or see how many cops I could get chasing me. And then I think what really pushed it over the edge is the whole, they were giving this out in the Epic Store for free a couple weeks ago. And I just thought, well, suddenly everybody's talking about GTA 5 again. Maybe I will just see what it's like. So I loaded it up on the PS4 because I just had a cheap copy from ages ago. And I spent a little time trying out the campaign again. I had to start all the way back at the beginning because the last time I played it was on PS3. But I was just like, It's been long enough. Let's see what this is like. Let's see if it's as just grating as I remember. And I don't think I was like... I didn't have quite such a visceral reaction to it as I did when it first came out. But man, all the stuff about, the writing is like just kind of baffling in some cases, just so artificial. And it feels very 2013 or whenever this game came out, where everybody was just trying to make the most like overwrought and impressive AAA open world game. And then just like a lot of the gameplay is still not great. The shooting is not especially good. It's because there's so many components in this open world, I feel like there's still a lot of cases where they just come together in bad ways. Like my car will get stuck on something where it shouldn't get stuck, and I'll have to go back and restart the entire mission.
Oh, God.
And I'm just like, oh, this feels very familiar. This feels like playing this game back in 2013.
And meanwhile, let me guess, like your wife or your daughter or some other, woman in your life is screaming at you because she's such,
Remember playing these games where just people talk to you constantly?
Non-stop. The phone's always ringing. Yeah.
Totally forgotten about this. I don't know, just because I haven't been playing this type of game, like since GTA 5, how many open world like crime games like this have I played? I think I played, what was the one in Hong Kong? Sleeping Dogs?
Flipping Dogs, yeah, it's great.
And then I played Watch Dogs 2 a couple years ago, and I think that was it, unless I'm forgetting something. I'm not going to start talking about Yakuza. I think that's a separate thing. But yeah, they're just people who talk to you all the time, whether it's, you're driving them around and they're just like blah, 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 blah for the entire car ride, or they'll like call you on your phone after. And it's just a good reminder of like, remember when people thought just the quantity of voice acting in a game was a measure of how good the game was, I guess.
Made it a good game, yeah.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable. So I got through a few missions, and it's kind of interesting just coming back to it at this point, because it's like practically a retro game at this point. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know if I need any more of this campaign. Let's go see what the online is like, because that's really my whole incentive for doing this in the first place. And so what I figured out you can do is you can just get into your own private session, because when I did try the online in the original, I would like have fun messing around for a little while, and then inevitably some rando would drive up and just like run over me in their car constantly.
Yep.
I was like, this is, it's not a great experience. I'm not enjoying this.
I believe I had that experience myself. Yep.
Yeah. Sure. It's like, it's almost like you're hazing into the world of GTA Online. It's got to happen to everybody at some point. But then I was just like, it'd be nice if this never happened, actually. So I just put myself in a private session, and I've been trying to just figure out, okay, what is there for me to do in this, essentially an MMO that all these other people have been playing nonstop for 6 or 7 years, or whenever this came out on PS4. So the first thing I was trying to do is just like earn some money, I guess, so I can, upgrade my gear and equipment, and maybe buy some properties or a better car or something. And I started just doing random little contact missions, like you call people on your phone and they'll give you a job to do. And some of them will be totally playable, like you can just play it on your own. I think ideally you're supposed to have a crew of people helping you out, because a few of them definitely seemed kind of scaled to have more people involved.
Oh.
But you can drop the difficulty down to easy, and it's pretty manageable. Or in some cases, if you want a little more of a challenge, you can try it on normal, which is kind of fun. But eventually I got into a session, like, I'm still trying to figure out just what all the different missions mean. Like, is this going to be a solo mission? Is this going to party me out with a bunch of people? Which is also terrifying, because it just reminds me of, like, remember when you would join multiplayer lobbies and there would just be, like, a bunch of people with weird Xbox Live names going, and somebody would have their mic on, and people be talking in the background, or somebody would be like coughing very loudly.
Right. Yeah.
It was like playing online games like 10
yelling
years
at
ago.
their spouse, or yeah.
So this whole thing has been a real throwback to that period of time when I play online games all the time.
So you can start a solo online session, but it will occasionally pair you up with randos to do stuff?
Yeah, and there are different settings you can adjust to control how often that happens. You can just straight up elect to join somebody else's game, I think, or you can start up a job and have it be limited to either your friends list or even just yourself if you're feeling like it.
Okay, so you can kind of wall it off a little bit if you chose to.
Yeah. But eventually I just stumbled on some of these where it was like kind of a heist mission in the kind of like we do in the old GTA 4 multiplayer, where you all start out as a crew and you go to the objective and you do the thing, you like steal the car, pick up the drugs or whatever, and then you have to take it to the drop off.
Right.
And I was feeling very intimidated because I had joined this group and I think I was like level 4. So clearly somebody not very far along doesn't know what he's doing. Everybody else in the group was like double digits, like level 60 or 70. So I just thought, all right, this will be my little ride along. I will just, we were driving a garbage truck and the host was driving this truck, and the other two guys, like kind of got in the back, like they're doing the trash pickup. I thought, this is great. I will just sit in the passenger seat. And if it comes down to it, I will defend my teammates with whatever weapon I've got. I've got like a little pistol at this point. And we just did the first couple missions, or the first couple stops were fine. They just picked up the trash or whatever was actually in the trash bags they were collecting. I'm like, this is very easy. And we got to the third one, and they're picking up the trash to put in the truck, and all these like AI enemies appear. So I thought, this is my moment. This is where I'm finally useful to this team.
My time to shine, guys.
Yeah, so I hop out of the truck. I got my little pistol going. I get behind some cover. I'm like, all right, as soon as this guy pops his head out, I'm going to take him out. Just right between the eyes with my little pistol. And as I'm doing this, as I'm watching for this guy to come out behind cover, one of my teammates runs by, and he is just brandishing this enormous laser cannon. And it starts shooting just like Star Wars lasers down this alley at this guy. And it's like, what is this? What is happening in this game? And then I turn around and they've all just got these equally absurd weapons. And here's me with my little pea shooter just kind of like nodding my head and be like, you sure shot that guy. And then we all go back to the truck, and we do like 2 or 3 more stops like that, and they just all play out the same way. Where I'm just like, I am contributing to this, and that was like, I kind of expected to run into a little of that because, like I said, everybody's been playing this game for a very long time at this point. Mm-hmm. But I was not expecting laser guns. Who knows what else is waiting in this game to be discovered? It feels like, start up any new MMO and you're out there killing like the ladybugs or whatever outside the first town, and you see somebody ride by in like a tank or a glowing Pegasus or something, and you're just like, you have been playing this game a lot longer than I have.
That is something for me to aspire to. Yes.
Yeah.
So did you get an equal cut of the funds at the end of this mission, or did they scale it to your shitty weapon?
That's a good question. I actually have no idea what they ended up making. I was very happy with the cut that I did receive. I was like, good. I'm just going to take this. I'm going to back slowly away from you guys, go back to my private session, and just like figure out what I actually want to do with this game.
Oh, you didn't keep rolling with those guys to try to make some more money and maybe get your own laser gun?
No, I probably should have, but at that point, I think my brain had been sufficiently overloaded. I was just like, I just need a moment to just process everything that just happened.
Sure.
Plus, there are so many cutscenes in this game. It's really surprising. And I'm talking about the online mode, where like sometimes I'll start a mission and there'll be like a 2 or 3 minute long cutscene with just NPCs like yelling at you. And sometimes it's at the end of a mission, and I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. That's weird design. So it might have been I was just like exhausted at that point. I was like, I need a break from this thing. But since then, I've just been, kind of hopping back on every once in a while, doing some solo stuff. Occasionally, maybe I'll try and join a crew. Try and get hard carried through some missions so I can get some extra cash. It's so much like, I feel like this is it though. This, like, the campaign was really not what I was looking for. I was hoping that maybe, seeing it in a new light and revisiting it, I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe there's actually something here for me. But I think really the online is the way to go. So I'm kind of optimistic about that. It does feel weird in that, like, there are a lot of other games I'm in the middle of right now. I don't know if it's the best idea to just start playing something that is endless.
Right.
So I think I'm going to treat it as just, like, something I come back to every once in a while.
Just occasional check-ins.
Yeah, I think like I've been trying to figure out what there is to do in the online if you're not just doing team missions with people. But there's this whole kind of like property investment mode, or I think you can you buy properties like you could in other GTA games, and you just do a little bit of management, and then they make you a passive income over time. I'm just like, oh, that sounds good. Let me just set one of those up, and I'll come back in a month or whatever. We'll see if that pays out for me. So I'm going to try and figure that out, and then, go back and play some more Judgment or whatever. But it was an interesting weekend.
Yeah. I saw you put that on the outline, and I was like, really? We're playing GTA 5?
Yeah,
what year is this? Yeah.
It's still going, though. It's still surprising a number of people playing it. It's weird. It feels like such an artifact, but I guess it's cool that it has this longevity for people.
Yeah. Yeah. And no sort of like hide nor hair of GTA 6. So I suspect somebody somewhere is working feverishly on it. But
I'm sure they're working on it. But yeah, like GTA Online has been so successful for Rockstar. Why would they even consider doing a campaign for the next one? Like, why wouldn't they just really lean into this kind of online mode where you sell people virtual currency or whatever?
Right. Rockstar bucks or whatever.
Yeah. Like, if they announced GTA 6, I don't know if I would want to play the campaign. Like, I have no interest in Red Dead. But if they showed me a bunch of cool online stuff that you could do, that might get me to check it out.
Online is such a tough sell for me. I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, it's like not necessarily multiplayer, but just messing around kind of in the spirit of the old GTA games. Just you don't have a goal, really. It's just
that kind of freewheeling, free play mode kind of mentality. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, I've had really good times over the years with GTA games. I just, I think I acknowledged at some point that I feel like maybe my taste in that and the time I had available to donate to things like that, dedicate to things like that, was finite. And, I didn't want to do it anymore. So I kind of bailed on the GTA experience in favor of putting my time into other things. I think if GTA 6 propositioned itself as telling a story of more interesting characters who are not nearly as grating or disgusting, then maybe I would find that more compelling than the prospect of like you said, an online mode where you just tool around and hang out with your buddies. I still think it's possible to tell a compelling and interesting crime story in a video game, but do something different with it, please, Rockstar.
I would hope that it's been long enough and like the industry and the audience has grown enough since GTA 5 that whatever they put out for GTA 6, if there's a campaign, I mean, there probably will be a campaign.
Yeah.
It would be very different than GTA 5. Because GTA 5 still feels much like it very much feels like a product of that generation of console games. Well, I mean, because it is.
It is. Yeah.
They could do something a little more fleshed out and better realized with GTA 6.
Yeah, one would hope.
Yeah.
So, what else is on our list? Darksiders Genesis. I can talk about this briefly because I've not spent a ton of time with it, but I did dip into this over the weekend and I had some fun with it.
What is this?
I'm sorry, what?
What is this?
So these Darksiders games, there have been 3 of them prior to this, and named Darksiders 1, 2, and 3. And they sort of like are the stories of the horsemen of the apocalypse. They're kind of done as the first one is specifically the first Darksiders is essentially a sort of an R-rated Zelda game. It has kind of big open world, interesting characters, dungeons. You get a horse. It has kind of all the hallmarks of a good Zelda, but done very much as a heaven and hell kind of apocalyptic kind of thing.
It's so weird that a horse has just become a hallmark of Zelda games because it's never something I was like, oh yes, here's Link, and obviously he has a horse.
Cool, I get a horse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. My brain goes there. I'm not sure where. What game is that begat that?
Well, I mean, like probably the majority of them have had a horse at this point, but
yeah,
the first few there are no horses, so so that is just what I picture.
Yeah. So
Darksiders has horses.
Darksiders, yep. Darksiders 2 went more down the road of being an RPG, as was very much the flavor of the time. Everything was upgradable and had skill trees and all kinds of other stuff. Mm-hmm. Still a big, crazy game with really kind of interesting artwork and sort of an interesting kind of artistic vision of the apocalypse. And again, that heaven and hell kind of thing. Darksiders 3, which just came out not too long ago. I think it was late 2018. New developers, because this was the whole THQ Nordic thing where all these developers kind of fell apart and got sold off piecemeal. So THQ Nordic had the license to it, hired a bunch of new folks to make the game, and it was not good. It was so bad that I played it briefly and decided, well, I'm not even going to talk about it on the show. I could just get on and beat it up, or I can talk about a game that I enjoyed playing. It was ugly. It was dated. It felt like some weird artifact. It felt like they wanted to make a Dark Souls game because it was weirdly technical, but it was just janky and stupid. Yeah, didn't care for it, so didn't finish it. And now we have Darksiders Genesis, also made by another developer, also not the folks who made the original good Darksiders 1, Darksiders 2. We have foregone the third-person dungeon crawler kind of aspect of it, and it is now an isometric, kind of above and to the right, 45 degrees, kind of Diablo dungeon crawler almost.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
It's not what I was expecting.
No, not at all. I have to assume this was done to make a product that's a little cheaper than a giant, expansive, open-world, third-person action combat game.
Is it in real time?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean,
is
it like
turn-based?
Is it like Diablo, or is it like an XCOM kind of thing?
No, it's definitely not XCOM. It's
okay, interesting.
It's still an action game. In fact, I don't necessarily have I've never played Diablo. I don't have that to kind of pull from. I've heard
Diablo.
I figured it was going to go that way, but I know what it looks like. I've seen Diablo played before. I know that you and again Paul were very into Diablo games in the past, especially Diablo 3, which is also on the Switch now. So for me, this feels more like the first two God of War games, where you have kind of a fixed camera perspective, and it's very heavy on like flooding you with enemies, and you use a variety of button presses and combos and cool weapons and a lot of flourishes and takedowns to just stomp everybody and move on to the next room and do that again. So yeah, it is kind of an interesting turn for the Darksiders series. The other thing that is kind of unique about Genesis, this new game, in addition to it being more of what feels like kind of a God of War game to me, an old God of War game, is that it also has co-op all the way through. So drop in, drop out. You can, as a single player, you can alternate between two different horsemen who have teamed up for this mission, and they both have different abilities that come into play at different times. Or you can play with a buddy who plays the other horseman, and you just ride into the apocalypse together.
Are these the two the horsemen that did not get their own game? Wait, who was the character in Darksiders 3?
I forget her name.
It was one of the horsemen, though, was it?
I think so. I think they're kind of playing fast and loose with the whole horseman thing, because there's supposed to be 4, right? Yeah.
Well, I thought the deal was like the first two games, it was like a different one of them. So it seemed
the first one was War, and he is in Genesis. The second one was Strife, I believe, and he's the other player character you can control in Genesis.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so man, those other two just never get their chance.
Third was a female lead, and I forget what her character name was, but yeah, it was not something that, like my knowledge of the whole, I guess, of the Bible and of the horsemen of the apocalypse is a little shaky anyways, but it's not somebody that I, because it's war, strife, famine,
pestilence, death.
Pestilence.
I think is death one of them.
Oh, maybe death was the second one.
I only know what they had the 4 horsemen in X-Men at some point, so I was like, yes,
okay,
learning stuff. I always thought that was such a cool angle, though, because, I mean, it's like these 4 obvious choices for protagonist or whatever, but also the fact that they would switch it up every game I thought was very unusual.
Sure. And if they're good games and people are excited about them, they're like, oh, I wonder who the horseman's going to be in the next game.
Yeah. Give me that famine horseman.
They have, I think they've squandered it a little bit because they've,
well, the quality is back to the other two, yeah.
The quality hasn't necessarily been there, and they keep switching developers, which is problematic always, and well, usually. And I think they're making up some of their own horsemen.
Oh, they're new horsemen?
Because I think the one in 3, the female horseman in Darksiders 3, is not one of the ones that we just said.
Oh. Okay, I'll have to look into this.
So I don't
Figure
know
out what's going on with all these horsemen.
Yeah. But anyway, I guess if you're trying to compare this to sort of the classic fairy tale of the Horsemen of the Apocalypse, then you're bound to be disappointed. But if you just want to kind of run around either solo or with a buddy and beat the snot out of minions and do kind of flourishing takedowns, and you get tons of like little upgrades and abilities and stuff like that, and you get pickups that allow you to do kind of power moves, and it's all presented in a way that is kind of visually appealing and interesting, and big open world with lots of little hidden secret places and little hidden doorways, and you're like, oh geez, I wonder if I can knock down this fence, and you knock down the fence and there's a whole other room on the other side with a secret gem you can pick up that gives you a cool ability to do a final takedown. So it definitely feels like they've kind of distilled the Darksiders experience down to, okay, we're going to make it kind of a hack and slash beat 'em up God of War kind of experience with a little bit of a kind of a Metroidvania kind of hidden rooms and shortcuts kind of thing. So like it's all of these little video gamey things that get you to explore and get you to continue cracking open boxes and beating up bad guys to get more and more upgrades. Like all of those little buttons, it kind of pushes pretty consistently.
It sounds like Diablo.
Is that Diablo? Yeah, in a nutshell.
You just like picking up new gear all the time.
Yeah. Yes. In this, you're getting like. You get sort of like...
new loot.
You get boatman's coins. So it's the boatman across the river Styx. If you collect enough coins, he'll give you upgrades. There are mysterious artifacts that you can sell to this little demon who likes collecting oddities, and he'll trade you for new weapons and new abilities and things like that. So those have been kind of staples throughout the Darksiders games over the years. Those are in this pretty intact. And again, it's just another one of those kind of manipulative things that I, as a gamer, if done well, find myself pretty susceptible to. So this is kind of fun. I find myself wishing, geez, I wish I had a friend who could roll through this with me and just help me beat up demons. But as a solitary experience, it's been pretty satisfying thus far. It doesn't sort of present a lot of difficulty. Again, at times you get sort of swarmed by tons of little minions, but you have such kind of flourishing area of effect attacks in a lot of ways that you can wipe them out pretty handily, and then you start getting little A icons, which means if you're near an enemy and you hit A, you'll do a big takedown, and they'll kind of explode into a bunch of billion lights, and you'll collect all of those, and those will refill your attack again, or what, again, go back to your favorites, Diablo, God of War, etc., etc. So,
it's too bad this didn't come out during my Diablo phase a couple years ago, because I would have jumped on that. Just be like,
would have capitalized on it right away. Yeah.
This is recent. It came out.
This I think it's a fairly recent release on the Switch. They were demoing it at PAX East. I think when did I go to PAX East? March, and it had just dropped like that week.
Oh, okay.
So not too long ago. This is also on other consoles. I know it's on the PS4 and the Xbox as well. So if any of this is of particular interest to you, or you've liked the Darksiders games in the past, maybe check this out.
Maybe I'll put it on my list. I still need to play that incredibly trashy looking like anime take on Diablo. So maybe I'll play that and then this one and compare and contrast.
What is that game?
That's one of the Hyperdimension Neptunia games. I don't remember the exact title. It's some total disaster. Why, you want to buddy up on that one?
No, I had not heard of it. I didn't know what game you were referring to.
Oh, I can't believe you've never heard of it.
Hyperdimension Neptunia.
Yeah, it's the one where they're all supposed to be video game consoles, except they look like just scantily clad anime women.
Oh.
We're just one of those games.
As one does, yes.
But that's cool. I think that's a real interesting twist on Darksiders. I didn't know if I needed like a Dark Zelda game, but like I said, I'm always kind of up for a Diablo clone.
Yeah, I don't know necessarily how well it's aged, but the first Diablo, I think, is... it feels... first Darksiders, correct. Yeah, thank you. Pacing of it, structure of it, the way it sort of reveals abilities, or you get like an ability or a tool, and then you get a dungeon to use that. It feels so much like like these developers played the best of Zelda and wanted to make something that was a little grittier, a little darker. And that's not always the best inspiration for making a video game. You don't necessarily end up with a good product in those circumstances, but that first Darksiders was so good in the time that I played it. I don't know if I played it again today, if I would necessarily feel the same way. And they've updated it. I think they did the definitive edition of Darksiders, as they called it, and it's on modern consoles. I haven't attempted to play it, so I'm not sure if it's if it would still feel or inspire that same kind of loyalty that playing the first Darksiders did back in the year that it came out. But I kind of had hopes for this series, and it's weird that they've sort of squandered it a little bit, unfortunately. But Genesis seems like a good time. I'm going to keep plugging away at it. I had a lot of fun playing it.
Nice.
Yeah. So
it seems like such a missed opportunity to have a cool 4-player co-op hack and slash thing with, the 4 horsemen. But
with all 4 horsemen kind of rolling at the same time, right?
Yeah. You can all be on your horses. It'd be so good. Maybe save it for the sequel.
Yeah, you do get a horse. You get you get a horse in Genesis. So if that's important,
to have a horse. You're one of the horsemen.
So doing a little research while we're talking, the first Darksiders you play as War, second Darksiders you play as Death.
Yeah.
And in the third Darksiders you're Fury.
That is not one of the... Is that? No, that is not a thing.
Making up their own thing. So, and then in Genesis you're playing as, you can either be Death or Strife. I'm sorry, not Death, War or Strife. I don't know where these are coming from.
Okay. I'm not 100% on these. I'm just trying to remember which one was our Archangel in whatever X-Men miniseries that was.
So you end up with a lot of babble about Nephilim versus fallen angels and the Charred Council, which are sort of the overseers of the horsemen and tell them when to ride. So there's lots of sort of pandering on about the end of the world when I'm really just sort of like skip. I want to just beat up bad guys.
Man, well, now I'm looking at the wiki page and it says it is Death, Famine, War, and Conquest. Conquest, maybe that's the one that gets changed every time because I don't remember that one. I'll look up the X-Men version next just to get it straightened out.
We shall compare and contrast.
So I played the hot new Steam game this week. It's actually from a couple weeks ago, called Helltaker.
What is that? I believe it's pronounced Helltaker.
There you go. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm just saying it wrong. This is a little, very small developer game that I just heard people talking about on forum because it was apparently blowing up on Steam. It is, it's very slight. First of all, it's like an hour long, so it's hard to kind of put it into just one genre because there's a lot of stuff that happens in that hour. But the premise is you are some guy who wakes up one day and you decide you want to collect like a harem of demon girls. So you're like, okay, we're going to do that. So you just descend straight into hell. And you're like this guy, you're like this like big guy who looks kind of like a combination of like Leisure Suit Larry and Frank West from the Dead Rising games. It's like Frank West in just a cheesy leisure suit, essentially. Gotcha. And then, so you're in hell, and you're like, I'm going to collect all these demon girls. The description on the Steam page is amazing, if I can find it. It's like, here it is. The description is... Helltaker is a short game about sharply dressed demon girls. That I can confirm is accurate. So anyway, you're in hell, going after these demon girls, and you do this. You make your way through hell by solving sliding block puzzles. And basically they just come down to, you got to push these blocks around. Maybe occasionally you have to find a key to unlock a door, but you to just clear out a path to make your way to the demon girl waiting at the end of this labyrinth. So that kind of like block pushing game.
Gotcha.
The presentation is terrific. Like the art style is, it's very colorful. I mean, it's a lot of like black and red and white, kind of minimal, but the graphics are super clean. and kind of cute. The all the illustrations, whether it's the main dude or any one of the demon girls, I think is like actually really, really incredible. Like the lead developer is like a cartoonist or illustrator, but all of the I mean, I guess as you would expect, all of the characters, all the illustrations of them are just like full of like personality, and they're very charming and funny. And as you are like pushing these blocks around, the lots of little fun animations that happen, like all the little sprites of you and they're like skeletons in all the maps that you kind of kick around, but they're all just kind of like bouncing back and forth in time with the music, and it's like, oh, okay, this is a very silly game, but it's like everything comes together very well. It is it's surprisingly challenging. Like there are not a lot of puzzles in the entire game, but it's like you can't really just take your time with these puzzles and push blocks around until you stumble upon the solution, because after a certain number of pushes, you have like a stamina value that depletes whenever you either move a space or push something, or if you kick a skeleton, and if you use up all of it, you just explode and go back to the start of the puzzle. So there's like, I feel like there's almost no room for error when you're doing these puzzles. So you really have to like stop and kind of study the layout of all the boxes and the route to the goal before you start moving, because otherwise you're just going to paint yourself into a corner and be like, oh, no, I'm out of stamina, and then I have to explode and go back to the start.
Oh, wow.
It's a very fast process, and it's accompanied by this great animation of like the title screen popping up, and it just says Helltaker in this terrifying font again, and then it pops back down and you start the puzzle over. So that is not as frustrating as it could potentially have been.
Oh, good.
It is just, man, I actually spent a lot of time just staring at these labyrinths and kind of like working backwards from the goal at the end, just being like, okay,
kind of plotting your way through it from the goal,
looking at the final block and just being like, okay, so in order to get here, I would need to push this block from this direction in order to get there, and so on, to the point where I would I finally got work my way back to the beginning, and I would go, okay, I think I had to move one square down. And so I'd move one square down, and then the whole process would start again. It's like, okay, now that I'm here, what can I do? And I'd just go on forever and ever. So that was surprisingly kind of strict, but also very satisfying to get through these puzzles eventually. When you get to the end, when you get to the demon girl at the end, you will have a brief conversation with them. And this is where some of the genre starts to blur, because it feels like a very, very light version of either an adventure game or a dating sim almost, where you'll be they'll say something like, hey, I'm so-and-so demon. And then you have to pick a response that will you have to pick a response that feels most appropriate for the type of demon they are and their personality. Because if you say the wrong thing, they will just immediately kill you and you have to go back and do the puzzle again. Instead of the ideal outcome is they join your harem and then you go on to the next level. But
so the puzzle just gets you a shot at wooing them.
Yes. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And they're all very simple. It's option 1 or option 2. So you really have a 50% chance on most of these. And the writing is so it's very goofy and silly, and the art of them responding to whatever you say has so much character that I kind of wanted to just intentionally fail every single one to just see what they would do and how they would decide to kill me afterward. But man, some of these puzzles are so difficult or so elaborate. I was just I don't want to have to go back and do that again. So I will just pick this option because I didn't want to get frustrated, even though the puzzles are not incredibly, they're not too much to deal with, but at the same time, just as little friction as possible, please. It turns out there's actually, if you really are just here for kind of the characters and the story, as soon as the level loads, you can just go to the menu and there's an option to just skip the puzzle and go straight to the conversation, which kind of defeats the point of half the game, but I can understand why you would pick that after bashing your head against some of these puzzles for long enough.
Well, that's, at least it gives you an option for being able to kind of explore those alternate dialogue options.
Yes.
Without the consequence of having to do the puzzle again.
So, after I ended up making it through the entire thing, and afterwards there's like a chapter select, so you can just go back to every single level, go straight to the end, and pick all the dialogue options. I was like, this is great. I'm going to do that. So, like I said, it's a short game. I got through most of it. Actually, I got through all of it in about an hour. There's a goofy epilogue sequence, and there's some secret stuff to do afterward. If you go through some of the levels again, there are some secrets to discover. But I thought it was just a great thing. It was a nice little thing to do some afternoon where you just have an hour and you want to play some very tricky puzzles and have a lot of really goofy character sequences play out afterward. It's very silly.
Cool. It sounds almost a little sort of inspired by Catherine, but not gross.
I've seen, I've seen that comparison a lot because, you're just doing these puzzles which have really nothing to do with like the story happening in the game, or maybe the story has nothing to do with the puzzles. I don't know which order it's supposed to be in, but like people really love the puzzles in Catherine, and I had a really good time with them in Helltaker as well.
Cool.
I'm also, like, the whole time I was playing this, I was just so blown away by the art, whether it was the character illustrations or the little dancing skeletons I just thought were adorable. And the whole time, like, when you talk to some of the characters, they're like these big, super buff, like skeleton guards standing behind them. And just like all the art in this is so striking. It's really impressive. So awesome. I really appreciate it on that level.
Cool.
And it's
DJ needs merch. Get some merch.
Get some merch. I'm sure like it has really exploded in popularity on Steam. I think what happened is it came out like earlier this month, like a few weeks ago, and it's free, so that's nice also.
Right.
And it was seeing some success, but then they released like a Japanese translation of it, and because the entire story revolves around like these anime demon girls, it just blew up on Twitter. Like people were posting fan art and like screenshots of the game, and so now it's just unstoppable.
Cool. And the harem of demon girls is done in such a way that it doesn't make you hate yourself afterwards.
No, I mean, I was feeling a little bit like there are a lot of people. Like I was going through the Steam forums, just trying to like figure out some stuff about like the secret endings and stuff, and all the other hidden stuff in the game. And there are all these threads about like, oh, who is your favorite waifu or whatever. And I was like, I don't need this, but it's not all about that, I think. So I wasn't feeling too gross afterward.
Good.
And it's not gross in like a Catherine way either. I think it's
right.
It's very lighthearted and funny.
Good. Cool. I mean, there's elements of Catherine I like, but it's not the game doesn't necessarily share my values.
Right. Yeah. So as far as I could tell, there was none of that happening. Like you can feel good about recommending this to people.
Excellent. Supporting a product I can get behind. Cool. No, I've never heard of this. I will have to, and I'm looking at some of the artwork and a little trailer on mute right now, and it's adorable. I may have to give this a whirl and see if it runs
super
on
good.
My machine here.
I think it'll be fine. I think you don't need a powerhouse machine to play this.
Good. I don't have one, so.
So again, that is Helltaker. It's on Steam right now. You can play it for free. If you really like it, and you want to support the developer, you can buy. There's like an art book and also a pancake recipe, which will make more sense after you play the game.
It looks like he has a Patreon too, so that might be something to get in on if
that also
folks want to dig deeper. Yeah, cool. That's exciting. What a cool discovery.
Yeah. I'm so excited. I think it was like 3 people who worked on this. It was the artist. I think then there was like a sound engineer and a composer.
Beautiful.
But I hope they're just raking in those pancake recipe donations or whatever.
That's excellent. Good. All right, cool.
All right.
Good. Well, that just about does it, I think, right?
I think so, unless they've released GTA 6 since we've been talking.
Not in the interim, no. You had mentioned while talking about Helltaker that the patch included a Japanese version. Is that accurate?
Yes. And I think there are other languages too. I think I saw a Chinese version floating around. I don't know if that was an official thing, but cool. Seems like they're working on getting it out there to more languages.
That is one of the things that was also included in the patch for Ministry of Broadcast was alternate languages.
Oh, nice.
I don't speak any other languages, so it doesn't really have any appeal to me. So I didn't really explore that. But there's a huge list of languages. So if English is not your first language, Ministry of Broadcast will support just a ton of different languages. So that is something maybe worth looking into as well if you're looking for alternate language tracks in video games.
Nice. That's really exciting to see, especially if it's from like a smaller indie dev.
An indie, yeah. How much resources must go into that?
Yeah, it must be a nightmare because I think it's a much more involved process than a lot of people expect. But at the same time, there are just people playing video games all over the place, and it sucks if you can't understand any of it.
Right. Cool. All right. Well, we should wrap this thing up. If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, please follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. Yeah. You can also get show notes, links, and tell us what you thought about this very episode at VGHangover.com. We would encourage you to join us on Discord as well and keep the conversation going after the show. What were we talking about on Discord this week? A lot of stuff. We have been very active.
Turnips.
Turnips all there is, of course, the constant turnip chatter. No, we had a couple of really good conversation threads about favorite JRPGs, first JRPGs we ever played.
Yeah.
And that spun off into a conversation about favorite Western RPGs. So yeah.
Lots
of game
Hardy chat at one point.
Tom Hardy, a lot of Tom Hardy. Whether or not I should watch Venom.
Probably not, but
with zero context. Yeah. No, zero context other than I like dumb sci-fi movies and Tom Hardy.
Okay.
Yep. Is that enough?
Well, I mean, if those are the only two boxes it has to check, then I guess go for it.
It is exactly both of those things.
Okay. All right. Oh, you know what? You should watch Star Trek Nemesis.
Which one is Nemesis?
It's the last one with the Next Generation cast. But Tom Hardy plays a bald Romulan, and it's great.
Oh, really?
That was actually the first time I had ever heard of Tom Hardy.
Oh.
So when he popped up again in probably Inception was the next thing I saw him in, I was just like, is that the Romulan guy from that one movie? It's weird.
Oh, we found the nerd in the room. Yep. Yeah. And you were all, who is that striking bald Romulan?
Wait. It's like I didn't even recognize him with the hair.
Oh, interesting. I don't know. I've seen a lot of those old Star Trek movies. I maybe have seen Nemesis. I will have to watch a trailer and see if it jogs any memories.
It's not one of the good ones, but like you said, if you want Tom Hardy and a dumb Star Trek, or just a dumb sci-fi movie, that qualifies. So
checks both of those boxes. Yeah,
put it on the list.
Excellent. Cool. If you want to join the Discord, and that was the whole point of this, you should get the link to that at VGHangover.com.
Tell us your favorite stupid sci-fi movie with Tom Hardy.
Yeah. I'll put it on a list. I'm going to watch them all.
Okay.
I got nothing but time. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts. That stuff helps us immensely. Also, tell your friends about the show. Anytime anybody has a conversation like, what podcast should I listen to? Tell them about Video Game Hangover.
Yeah.
That's a conversation people have all the time, right now.
Oh, just constantly, yeah.
Just on the street outside of my house.
Oh, yeah, just, open up your window and then tell them about your favorite video game show.
Someone tell me what show I should listen to. Yeah.
Yep. Just be like, close your window.
Try to sleep. Try to record a podcast. All right. Well, that's it. We'll be back next week. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thanks for listening to Video Game Hangover. Bye.
Good night.
See ya.
No.